guys in the room. Tom, I have to tell you, I got a new hard drive a couple months ago after we had some problems. Me, especially, had some problems with what during, not this one, guys, my computer would crash and it would take like hours to get it back up. And then there was the time where in the middle of the show, the computer went down and it took like an hour and a half to reboot it. Now, the other day with this new hard drive, I had a Zoom meeting one morning and it was like 9:29 and I needed to be on the Zoom and it was one I was hosting at 9:30. I was like, oh shit, it's 9:29. I ran downstairs, turned on my computer, and was on the Zoom in a minute. That's the kind of production I have with this new hard drive. So I'm living life now. I'm living my best life. I got a new hard drive. So how are you doing today, Tom?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing the difference a little bit of technology will make, right? Like when you have things actually working in your favor instead of working against you. And it probably, I would guess, also that when you had the new hard drive installed, you probably also did some software updates and some cleanup. And so overall, the computer is running more efficiently. And that's like, I feel like that's one of those things. And like, I'm not an IT guy, right? But I feel like it's one of those things, and I'm 100% guilty of this myself too, is like a lot of us just don't do maintenance on our electronics, right? Like you think about like maintenance, like the light comes on when you got to get an oil change on your car, right? Like you think about maintenance for other parts of your life, right? But you don't think about maintenance for your electronics or for your computer. And so many people like run into a lot of problems. They go, I don't understand why it doesn't work. And it's sort of like, well, have you maintained it? Have you done updates? Have you removed unnecessary software? Or is the memory clean? Like, you know, what have you done to maintain the system and keep it working? But I'm glad to hear that you're functioning at a high level of proficiency with your new hard drive install and cleaning up some of the things you had going on there. I'm happy to hear it. I'm happy for you, bud.
I feel like a new man. I'm the efficiency. I'm operating at a higher level now. So 100%. So I pitched an idea to Tom. I wanted to talk today about setbacks and what you learned. And so we just had a quick back and forth. And so I wanted to explain this. And this is what I want to pitch to everybody we come across today if they want to jump up. And so let's say the first book that I wrote, Tom, I didn't tell anybody I was writing this book. My wife and like a few other people knew. So when the book came out, after it took me 7 years, that's how bad I was at it first. It took me 7 years to write the first book. And when it came out, now when I told somebody, people said, oh, I didn't know you were writing a book. I didn't know that was something you were interested in. I didn't know this. And I didn't sell books. And it took time and time and time and time to build. Where all along, people should have known. People should have known that I was up to. People should have seen POV posts. People should have seen posts at all. People should have known what I was talking about. I could have been on Twitter talking about it. I could have been on Facebook. I could have been building a brand. I was doing none of that. I wrote a book in secret and then released it and expected it to change the world. Well, I wrote it in secret and nobody knew about it. It was I would call it, and I don't want to get in, everybody wants to get into this, failures, setbacks, nothing's a failure. Okay, I'm just saying. This was something that I didn't want to happen like that. And I learned from it and would caution people not to make the same kind of mistake. If you're like when Legendeering came out, you talked about Legendeering for a year going into Legendeering. We knew about Legendeering. You had little logos on your screen that said Legendeering, order your book now, and things like that. All things that helped you day one sell one more book. So this is part of the process. So that's something I learned, and I thought we could go back and forth and get some stories off of whoever we see today and that kind of thing. So what do you say, Tom?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me. And I think I'm kind of going through a little bit of this right now, and I'm just going to be super transparent. I mean, I talk about authenticity all the time, and I got authenticity on the mind. I was talking about it earlier this week. I put a post up about it, about how your audiences want to see you, kind of flaws and all, warts and all, right? And so here's the thing: is like, I've created this strategy, legendaring, right? I've written a book about this strategy. I believe wholeheartedly in this strategy. The thing that I've run up against, and I've done versions of this, I've done repeat work with clients, but this is not a strategy that I've been implementing for 20 years, right? Like, and I think that's often how people structure books like mine, or people are familiar with books like mine, is they're used to it being like, oh, this is a strategy that's been around, and now this guy is finally getting around to writing a book about it. And honestly, it was kind of the opposite, right? Like, I created the strategy. It is a combination of things that all work, or all proven to work, we know work, right? Have stood the test of time. Um, but it's, in and of itself, legendaring is a new strategy. And one of the biggest hurdles or setbacks I've faced, is getting buy-in from potential clients, right? And there's a ton of people who love the idea of legendaring, but are hesitant to, and wary to put their money where their heart is, right? They believe in it, they love the idea, but they don't want to buy in yet, because they haven't seen a ton of other people buy in, right? And that's really the impediment that I'm running up against. Is there's this idea that, like, people like the idea of being a maverick. People like the idea of going first. People like the idea of, disrupting their industry or doing things differently. But the problem is that it's really hard. And a lot of people don't want to do it until they've seen that other people can do it. They don't want to take a chance on it. And it's been tough. It's been tough, right? Because one of the conversations I have over and over and over again is, can you send me like a link to a bunch of legendaring series that you've produced? And the answer is no, because it's new. I can't do that. Will I be able to do that? Absolutely. I believe I'll be able to do that. But can I do it today? No. And that's really the biggest setback I've been coming up against. But again, like, when you're trying to shake things up, when you're trying to encourage people to do things differently, to think differently about approaching a problem, to change the way they communicate with their audiences, it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be a tough road. And all the other euphemisms for difficulty you can think of. It's going to be all those things. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that one of the setbacks I'm facing right now.
So, Tom, what do you do? Show them examples of other companies using similar strategies? Is that the thought process then? If you can't show, like, they were forward, person first, people first. They were a people first company, or a story first. Is that the thought process?
Yeah, I can show analogous strategies and how they've worked over time. I mean, the easiest one, because at its core, legendaring is based on content marketing, right? And it's a particular use case for content marketing, but it's based on content marketing. And I don't think you could find anybody that would argue that content marketing doesn't work. Content marketing works. It's a proven marketing strategy. It works, right? And so legendaring is built kind of on the back of content marketing. And the easiest one that I can point to, where you can see a brand that has done a really good job of building audience-centric, audience-focused content that's not about their products or services, but is tied very well to their brand, is Red Bull, right? I mean, Red Bull is, one of the they're the number one energy drink, right? They still are the biggest in the market, even with the proliferation of energy drinks from, all other beverage manufacturers. Everybody who makes a beverage at this point makes some version of an energy drink, right? Well, Red Bull was the first. They still have like a 40% market share. But if you go to their YouTube channel, for example, and they have several YouTube channels, but if you go to their main YouTube channel, you're going to find a ton of content that is all branded Red Bull, but none of it is about Red Bull, right? None of it is about the soft drink. None of it is about drinking the soft drink. None of it is about how the soft drink, changes, your ability to perform in sports or whatever, right? It's all about the stories of the kind of extreme sports and daredevil sports that Red Bull has become known for. And the reason why they're known for that is like one of the things that Red Bull was trying to do when they started breaking into the market was they were looking for a target audience. And who did they need as a target audience? But they needed people who had low risk aversion. And who has lower risk aversion than people that either jump out of planes themselves or like to watch people jump out of planes, right? Like people who jump out of planes like to watch other people do crazier things jumping out of planes, right? So it's that was their target audience. That was the demographic they were going after. And so they created a ton of content for those people. They sponsor to this day, like Red Bull is an energy drink company that sponsors a trick parachute team. Like, what does one have to do with the other, right? Nothing really, except that the target audience for Red Bull is the same as the target audience for those trick parachute teams and the films that they make about them, right? And that's really that's one of the best sort of case studies I can give for how a brand has used value-driven content marketing for their audience to drive growth over time. And they went from a startup in the 1980s in Austria to the number one energy drink in the world, 40 years later, doing, I think, close to $10 billion a year in sales. I mean, I think it's worked for them. Like a lot of other things have worked for them. I'm not saying that's the only thing that, their success is attributable to, but it's definitely helped. I mean, there's a reason why they still spend a third of their gross annual revenues in marketing, right? A third. So like if they do $10 billion, they're going to spend over $3 billion in marketing, right? I mean, that's a big marketing budget. That's a big marketing play, but it's, here they are with 40% of the market share, all these years later with all these competitors in the space. So, I think there's something to be said for it. But I think that's like, to answer your question, that's like one of the easiest case studies I point to. But there's tons of them of companies doing things like legendeering or parts of legendeering, but not really ever the whole strategy. And so that's the challenge that I've run up against.
I get it, man. So carving his own path. So me and Tom, the idea here today was some setback that you learned from. And so meaning along the way, I said my first book, I didn't tell anybody about the book. It took me 7 years to write it, and I didn't tell anybody about it until it was out. I mean, talk about not pre-branding, talk about not promoting, talk about the worst launch ever, all those mistakes I made. So I wouldn't do things the same. And Tom started talking about creating a brand and so his brand legendeering and value-driven content marketing, and he launched a book around that, but that strategy isn't out in the world yet. And so is there setbacks? I think we've had 1,000 of them. So John, Jason, Julie, hello, good morning. Thanks for stopping by. But have you ever, Tom's waving at you too. Is there ever something that you been down that path, John, where like you started a podcast and you were on the wrong platform, talking about the wrong thing, using the wrong mic, whatever, and you're like, shit, I learned from that. Go on, my friend.
I'd say the biggest lesson learned wasn't about the technical stuff. It was about depending on other people for your success. So my former partner, as good as a guy as he is, he had other concerns. And for me to think that he would place my growth as a concern over his was foolhardy at best. So I had to become my own advocate. And kind of like what Tom said, and he used a good analogy with Red Bull. Now, I don't drink Red Bull, but they got into sponsoring race cars. They got into sponsoring the extreme sports stuff. They cut a path that no one else did, and they were unabashed about letting people know what their product is. They and some could say they were bold about it, but so what I would say is do not depend on other people to determine your level of success. If you don't feel you're getting what you need to become your own best advocate and be willing to ABP. I always say always be promoting where appropriate, but always let people know what you do. Otherwise, you're just going to be another casualty on the roadside of life. That's the reality of what we face nowadays. And the more competition there is, the more casualties there are.
Yeah, I love that, John. I think you're 100% right. One of the things that I do whenever anybody sees me, it's now kind of become synonymous. It's almost a little bit of my brand, I guess, like part of my brand identity, is this hat that I wear, with my logo on it. Right. And early on when I launched Talex Media, when I started the business, coming out of the entertainment industry and going into the B2B space, I was thinking about getting some t-shirts made or doing some swag or whatever. And somebody suggested I get a patch made or get a hat made. So I did and started wearing it, and it became kind of part of my look or part of my signature image, I guess. But one of the things that I got asked was why always the hat? Like, why the hat? And people assume that it's because I'm bald, and it's really not. I didn't wear hats for years. I've been shaving my head for over 20 years at this point, over 25 years at this point. I've been bald for a real long time, and the hat is not in any sort of attempt to hide my baldness. The hat was really because I believed and I felt that if I wasn't proud enough of my business, of my brand, of the company that I was building, to wear it, right, like with pride, to wear my logo with pride, then nobody else was ever going to be that proud, right? Like that nobody else was ever going to do it. And it's sort of maybe and Dom just leaned back. He's got his Motivation Champs t-shirt on. But yeah, I think, it's one of those things that, like, Red Bull, to your point, John, Red Bull did very well, that they don't talk about Red Bull in the content, but it is everywhere. Who has sponsored the content, who has brought you the content, who is delivering that value to you, because Red Bull is on helmets, it's on cars, it's on parachutes, it's on airplanes, it's on helicopters, it's on snowboards, it's on, whatever, right? And anything in there that they can put a logo on, they do, right? Because what they're doing is, and what they're unabashed about, is reminding the audience who is delivering the gift of the content to them, who is bringing this to them, who has created this for them. And I think that's a great point you made, John, and something I can even be better at myself is in advocating the work that advocating for Talex Media, my company, advocating for the work that we do, promoting the work that we do, and maybe taking a little bit more out of Red Bull's book, and branding everything I do a little bit more with a little bit more intention. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, John. What do you think, Dom?
I want to dig back into this, John, the promoting of what you got going on. John, like, what's the line, and how far can we go? And like, all of us should be pushing more, but we're not. What is it that makes us let's say Tom. I've never seen Tom promote his stuff one time. Like, I mean, we know he admits it. Like, okay, this is like, or me or you or anybody in here. Julie could promote herself more. Jason could promote his podcast more. Man to man. I don't see him promote it that much. I think there could be more. And I'm not. So is there a line, John? How do we get over this issue that we all have?
I think there's definitely a line, and it's acquired skill set. So, look, we all have to start ugly. And when people start telling you, shut up about it already, then maybe you cross the line. But we learn as we go along, we progress, we get better as we go along. So, for example, you rarely ever hear me mention the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast in Clubhouse. However, that's an integral part of the growth. Can I give you actual numbers? No, but we've expanded tremendously. I think it's more about adding content and then have people search you out and become curious about you as an individual. In the early days, was it like that? No, it was more about preaching the brand until I guess you get a little experience. So, and it's kind of like the tide. It goes, it changes all the time, ebbs and flows. So I have to be aware that what worked yesterday may not work tomorrow, and I need to change my approach. But definitely start ugly and then progress from there and see how you can get better.
John, I love it, man. And I'm serious about this when I just sounds cliche when you say I love it, but this idea of starting dirty. And John pointed out that nobody ever told him. I don't think I've probably had 10 people in 10 years say like, it's too much. And I say, okay, I get it. Well, you don't have to follow it. Here, you can push mute on that page. So I'll even tell people like, feel free to mute the page. I'm not offended by it. So there are 10 people. It's actually about 3, but I take it. I was hurt by it when they said, and then most of them came back. You know, they were like, because it's motivation 24/7, put out inspirational content. So the people that have had the most issue with it are people that were going through some things at that time and felt like I was talking directly to them, or they didn't want to hear it at that point. And so they didn't want to hear it. So John, at that point, they did say, it's too much. Okay, mute it, you know. But other than that, they're really, which makes me think, John, you're right. We could all go a lot more all in with, and I say, if you are giving value, it isn't a one track. If you're all of a sudden saying, follow me, I hate when people say, follow me so I can get to number 1, or buy my thing so I can get to number 1, blah, 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 blah. Well, that has no value in it for anybody else but you. So as long as you are giving things, I've made some clips from old clubhouses and stuff, and Tom talks about giving value, and as long as you are giving value, I mean, I just watched that clip the other day, and if you are giving value, then you're doing the right thing. So if the clip was, why would somebody, we were talking about something silly, why would they watch it? And Tom says, well, obviously the reason they watched it is because they got value out of it. They wanted to smile or whatever they were looking for, and they got that value. So that's where I'll go, Tom, and then we'll move around here. Go on.
I feel like from your description, Dom, you're saying that I beat that drum to death. Like, is that horse dead on the ground, or should I keep talking about delivering value or leading with value?
I think it's good, and it was clear, it was concise, and
concise.
It's what you do. Yeah,
I was concise.
That? Yeah, you were in this. Well, when I clip you down to 30 seconds, you're concise as hell.
I was going to say that's. I don't think I've ever been accused of being overly concise.
Hey, and I just want to give a shout out to this Opus Clips. I just started using them. I looked at a couple other like clip making things. You can put in keywords. I can put in the actual link, not the raw files, because I didn't always have raw files on everything, but I had the links. I can give it the time frame. I can put in keywords for it to look at. I can change formats in Opus Clip for $10 a month. It prints me out like 30 30 clips at a time in 20 minutes, and not all of them are perfect. They need clipped, or it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And it gives you a write-up about each one and says, you missed the hook here, or A in hook, B in conversation, C in trending, or it says, I got one this morning. It gave me my first note. It said, clips like this have got millions of views, so I'm like, hey, that's not so bad. All right, so let's do this here. Not the smartest guys in the room. We're going to talk to our friend Julie Loken, but we do need to say thank you for everybody for coming through. Whether I see your friend Chris is asking some questions on Facebook. So wherever you're at, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Facebook, if you're here on Clubhouse, if you're wherever we are streaming, we appreciate you, because it would be a boring conversation. Me and Tom would just be arguing, which I did see on, speaking of clips, I put this one on TikTok. It was me and Tom talking about who was older and how one looked older than the other. And my son says to me, somebody didn't like that post. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I went and read the comments, and it was like, why are these two old, boring guys talking about who's older? Yeah, they need to get a light. Who's better looking? Yeah, it was funny. So, all right. So
who's so bored with their life that they're commenting on two boring old guys talking about who's older?
I should take that down, shouldn't I?
It's Julie's burner account. We knew it all along. So, okay, before we get to Julie, your friend Chris says that's true. The hat is new. He says for him, the trademark is your lovely turtle tattoo. I never knew about it. Tom had a turtle tattoo. So
last year at some point, I think it was last year, maybe it was the year before, I put up a post where I had just finished a run and I was shirtless. On social, I put up a vlog post, and I was shirtless, and I did that very specifically. And the reason why I did it was because, it's one of those things that, like, when it's really, really hot out and I want to be more comfortable, like, it's more comfortable to run without a shirt on, right? But like, I've kind of always been, the chubby kid, right? Like, and I'm not chubby, right? But like, I was always the chubby kid growing up. And so like, I always had a little bit of like hesitancy to like take my shirt off in public. And yeah, so like I put this post up, and anyway, I have a tattoo of a turtle on one side of my chest. I have both sides of my chest tattooed, and on one side there's a turtle. And so that's the reference there. But Jason, is okay, there you go. Okay, you got it, Dom.
I'm on it, man.
Yeah, there you go. Jason was asking what's the question, a setback and what you learned, and specifically, a setback when we talked about it, if you have one in creative work, that was sort of what Dom and I had initially sort of batted back and forth in email before we came into the show today. So if you've got, I think without further ado, we could go to Jason now that he's up to speed. Unless you want to talk about my topless posts anymore. Oh, you're muted, Dom.
Damn, because I was saying that I'll clip Tom topless, so that'll be the line.
Nice. All right.
Well, Jason, go on.
Let's move on to Jason then and stop talking about my chest. Jason, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah, I really want to know about them chest hairs and the tattoo. The turtles swim through all that patch. There you go. No, I'm just kidding. There's a few things about failure. It always has an opportunity for you to learn back. I don't even think it's a setback, because setbacks are meant to set you up. Are you going to get pissed off and mad because it didn't work out? And I had a stoic question that I did my own post since I'm doing my #DailyWalk30. And my question of the day was, am I expecting the possible and not just what I want? And the more that I thought about it, I was like, well, if I didn't put in work, right, and I am hoping like for this thing or this person or whatever, this whatever it is that my desire to happen, and then it fails, and I'm like, well, okay, I didn't go any forward. Or if I didn't understand what was required, then what am I thinking? Right. So, and I appreciate Dom's call. I was like, hey, Jason, where's your man-to-man stuff? And here's what I did. For the last couple weeks, I stood back. What do I need to do to execute? What do I already have on my plate? Like, what are my expectations first? My setbacks are a result of either lack of work or expectations that can never be met. So when I understand that, yeah, it sounds smart and it's easy to say, but when you have to go be by yourself, get down and dirty, no matter who it is, and you've got to exclude all the interrupting thoughts, people or people's importance things, and it's not that thing, then you're just doing yourself a disservice. So the setback sometimes is really a bigger indication that where you can do better work. And then there are times where the setback is just telling you this is not an opportunity for you, and that's the hardest pill to swallow, because it is our pride. No matter how bad you want it. Like, for example, I wanted to become an Olympic athlete. I wanted to be like Edwin Moses in the 84 games running the hurdles. Well, I committed to excellence from 7th grade till the 12th grade, and I got really good. But one thing I didn't count on was what happens when I got to go survive, when I can't fund my training. My parents couldn't fund me. I had to do something else. I had to join the Navy. I had to go do other things. And I wanted my dream so bad. And then when I had a moment to get back, I didn't have the ability. It was okay to have that dream, and that setback set me up for later. What do I really want to do? And you know what? I like talking. I wanted podcasting. I wanted a YouTube experience. I met a lot of amazing people, give me lots of advice. But if I couldn't put any of that advice and find a meaningfulness to it, and then I fail, what am I doing? So I look in the mirror before I look at anyone else now. I tell my kids, stay focused on your swim lane and not somebody else's. Focus in on what needs to get done. And something I learned this week, or reminded, when you want something so bad, think about it, list it, write it down, give it a deadline, know exactly what it takes to get there, take massive action, and don't look back. Don't judge yourself so harshly of what you've never done or you don't know. Just be able to learn and accept and move forward. So setbacks are really setups if you treat it the right way with the right mindset. So look at what your expectations are, and if you're out and you just wanted it, okay, great. You wanted it. Now what? What's after you got it? So that's all I got to say, guys. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Hey man, thanks for being here. Cool picture, new darker shades here, and setbacks are setups. Okay, let's keep on rolling here. Not the smartest guys in the room. We got our media expert, our Creative Con founder here, Miss Julie Loken, talking about mistakes that people made. Last year when I was at Creative Con, I had this little camera with me. I was like recording people backstage and stuff, and I'm getting like backstage footage of people with this little handheld camera, and I go home
this year. It was this year, right?
Yeah, this year, man. So, well, 20, what year is it? Okay, you're right. A couple months ago. So, yes. So this year, this is how recent the mistake was. I know this, but why the hell do I do it over and over? I'm recording people backstage. The camera also has a little boom mic on it. I didn't have the boom mic turned on. Boom mic was plugged in, so none of the audio. I got no audio off of it. And I've done this dumb before, but what I need to do, Tom, what I think I need to do in this case, or I was going to say filming in the dark, this is something, what I need to do is stop for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and replay the first clip that I have recorded. And I would know it's too dark. I would know the sound wasn't on. I would know my head's cut off. But not replaying, not stopping for 5 minutes when I'm recording and replaying one of the first clips has been a detriment to me. So this is something I've learned, and I'm going to try to do better at it. So That was a poor introduction to Julie, who deserves a much better introduction than that. But Julie Loken, is there anything that you've done creatively where you're out there making press releases or podcast and something happened and you're like, uh-oh, I'm not going to do that again? What do you got?
Dom, I thought it was going to be a much better story. Like you had your camera on and, all you got was video of my feet, but no, it was good though. Quite honestly, I know one of my biggest faults, and it is trusting people to a fault and also believing in people that don't believe in themselves and bringing them onto my team and giving them every benefit of the doubt and making excuses because I believe in their potential. And it has backfired on me in many ways, especially financially, because, if it's your business, I take full responsibility, even if I wasn't directly involved in it. So that's a lesson I learned. And well, oh, hi.
So how do you fix it, Julie?
Well, first of all, I have to take responsibility for their actions. I can't blame. I don't think blame is a cool thing to do, especially as a leader. And it's also about getting really tight with j- your business circle as opposed to your personal circle and making sure that you see things with clarity and you're not, you know, clouded by just, oh, I see this potential in this person. Oh, and just seeing it for what it is. So definitely the first thing is for me to take responsibility and to never make that decision again. Thank you. I land my plane.
Thank you. Landon the plane. An old school clubhouse analogy there. That was early on. Everybody that got off there was like, I land my plane, I land my plane, I land my plane. Okay. Thank you, Julie. Not the smartest guys in the room. Steven, creatively, you ever been out and about doing something, creating something, filming something, podcasting, and something didn't work out, and all of a sudden you said, I'm going to use that as fuel, or that's going to make me better. And you have any stories like that?
Well, I tend to go along with the Bob Roth freaking theory of things. There are no mistakes, just happy little clouds, So, I mean, of course, I'm an artist in many facets. So you don't not make mistakes. Um, it's like, okay, so I grab a canvas and I have this idea and I start this painting, and it just is not working out halfway through it. I just lose feeling in it. There's this wonderful, wonderful freaking substance called gesso, and you can just go ahead and wipe that canvas freaking clean to an extent and start over. And as long as you realize that there are no real mistakes, just learning opportunities. Um, and being my major career being farming, we have to deal with the weather, inclement, weather every year. We're never, ever, ever not in a state of what's going wrong and how to repair it. So that's just kind of the way my mind has always worked. Um, well, except for my younger years, come on, but since I found recovery, been sober 25 years, freaking, that's the way I've trained my brain, and it works really well for me, because I used to let things that I messed up on like really eat me up, like really bad. So I guess I've gone from one extreme to the other. Um, with my mentality on messing up and making mistakes. Not a single person in this world, has number one done anything absolutely by themselves, and nobody's done it without making mistakes. So don't be too hard on yourself. that's the hard lesson that I've had to learn from my mistakes is don't be too hard on myself, because if I didn't make the mistakes, I wouldn't know how to fix it. But now I know how to fix it. So that's even better than, not knowing how to do it in the first place, So you do it, you mess it up, and then you have to turn around and fix it. So you just learn so much in that one mistake that's invaluable. You can't put a price on it. So that's my personal opinion, and I land my plane.
All right, man. Don't be too hard on yourself. That's a good message. I would think every one of us here are probably too hard on ourselves daily, hourly with everything we are involved in. Stephen, are you the glass blower as well?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Okay, I'm following you on TikTok, man.
I know. I appreciate it. I really do.
I'm in, man. I want more glass blowing videos.
I got my kid on this week, so he's going back to his mom's on the 4th. So I'll be back on the torch on the 5th. So yeah. But thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching. Glad
yeah, no worries, man. Everybody share, put your content, put your links in the chat wherever. We'll support you or check it out and see how we can help. I think you have a creative community here that would be proud to support you. I love, let's get sidebar. I love seeing a world through other people's eyes. So show me the world of glass blowing. It is interesting to me. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I sit in this room and help people write books all day. Seeing glass blowing is different. Seeing Jason do his walk every 30 days is different to me. Seeing Dr. Tachi with her fancy background when she's interviewing people, it's different to me. I like it. So I just want to see, I think, showing the audience, and it's a way to be vulnerable and authentic too. Hey, here's what's going on. Here's my world. I'm letting you in on this. This is my Powerade. This is my jar with a lot of weird stuff in it that I seem to pick out of 50 times a day. It works for me. That's what I got going on here. So, all right, Tom.
Tom, is that? I mean, it's time for show and tell. It's funny that you started spontaneously just randomly picking things up on your desk. Is that your show and tell? A Powerade bottle and a jar full of
yeah. I'm really desperate today. So you ready for show and tell, Tom?
Yeah, it's time. Let's do it.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Tom taught me a lesson a few weeks ago, which I'm okay.
You're making me nervous. Like there's a little bit of prep and build up going on.
This is good. Today, and you mentioned one day I don't show a lot of books. This is a new book I got. It is, hey, Dr. Taji, this is The Killing Joke. It is a graphic novel. So one of my authors, and this is not by me or by us, but one of my authors mentioned this book. We're working on a growing graphic novel right now called The Waterloo Diaries. So to put out the best content, a lot of times I will have, I want to review other books and see what's going on, whether it's Atomic Habits, whether it's a popular book that somebody's talking about. What is it about this? Dr. Tachi says she loves the cover. So yeah, the cover is cool. And the artistry is cool. Batman is always cool. So Batman is always cool. But I like to research and study. If I'm going to produce a graphic novel, let me see more of them. What are the best ones? What are they doing in here? Oh, how'd they say their name? So The Killing Joke, I will add to my book collection. It's a graphic novel, and it's pretty cool. That's what I got for you today, Tom.
I like it, man. I think that's cool. It's one of those things, like I've watched a bunch of series, or films even adapted from graphic novels, right? So like I watched the original like Watchmen film. I didn't watch the series, or at least in full. I watched a little bit of it here and there, but yeah, like Watchmen was one. There's a couple others, and I'm drawing a blank. I can't think of what they are now, but I've watched a couple. And I like always in the back of my mind, I'm like, I would love to actually read one of these graphic novels and check it out. And I haven't yet. I have not yet done that. And I kind of like, it's one of those things where it's like, I think this is just part of life, right? Like that you always have a sort of like never ending list of things you want to do. And like, you're not going to get to all of them. You know, some of them are going to end up kind of just getting pushed off the list or pushed to the side. But I hope at some point I find the time or I make the time to read a graphic novel, because I do like the idea of them. I just haven't like jumped into that yet. But yeah, no, I think that's cool. And the artwork is, you know, I mean, undeniably cool. There is something very appealing, I think, for a lot of people, but you know, for me included, and I was never into comic books, but there's something very cool about comic book art, right? Like there's just, it's such a unique genre, and I think there's something very cool about it. So yeah, I mean, that's cool. I appreciate you sharing it. Maybe you sharing this graphic novel is going to get me one step closer to actually picking one up myself. Who knows? Who knows? You might have given me a push in that direction.
I have a suggestion for
what you got, Stephen? Go on, man.
I don't know if you guys know this, but my stepdad is one of the 7 founding members of Image Comics. Back in his early days, he produced a graphic novel called The Valentino Chronicles. It's a really good book. You guys might want to check it out. I don't know if it's still available in print, but I'm sure if you search for it, you can find it. Maybe through Shadowline Inc. You might be able to find it. But as well, he produced a comic book for several years called The Normal Man, and it's really freaking funny. He also made a graphic novel out of that, out of all the compilations of all the books. So there's a couple of suggestions for some pretty cool graphic novels for you.
All right, brother. Thank you very much. Appreciate the suggestion. And make John Jay put some links in. I'm going to put some links in. Make sure you put some links in the comments. We'll follow you. We'll check you out. We'll see what you're up to. Hey, talk about low lift promoting. Go on. Put it in.
Right.
We're
yeah.
asking you to.
John's throwing in the he's doing what he said he was going to do, right? He's doing the always be promoting, right? So he threw in his radio website, the radio website, and he threw in his Facebook group or his Facebook page for his talk show. You know, just walking the talk, right? Like,
and we asked him to do it. We asked him to do it, right?
We could all, I should do more of it myself, like 100%.
Yeah, 100%. I'm doing it right now. So that's it. I'm getting a group on there.
Wait,
all right.
Did I inspire Dominic and Tom?
Yeah, you did. I'm going in the link up top.
And I didn't mention cat suit at all. I didn't even bring that up.
You know,
except for when you just did. I
had to do that.
Thank you, John. I mean, who knows? I'm gonna have to find the clip of that too. Okay, Dr. Tachi, has there ever been something, a setback in your your business process, where all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, that was a mistake, or that didn't work out. I'm gonna change that next time around. What do you got for us?
Oh, okay. Good morning.
Yeah, what a segue, huh? Yeah. Just give us the best answer right now.
Just throw her in the fire, why don't you?
Yeah, that's how we do things.
This is the thing. My entire everything is always redoing what I do. Sometimes I just go with things, but often it's like, okay, well, for example, when I first started Mediascope in 2015, I had a plan of, I don't know if you all know, but I'm a very big Doctor Who fan. And I had a plan of having a whole segment there that was going to be like a Who report and talk about what was going on with Doctor Who, the new, when the new doctor came up and all of that. But then I was like, I got people responded so well to the news part of it. I was like, okay, well, never mind. I don't even have to do that because most people aren't Whovians like I am. So it's a question of understanding what the audience wants as well, because they didn't say they didn't want that, but I never even got around to it because people were so enamored with that. So had I just gone with my own, well, I'm going to talk about Doctor Who anyway, it may not have worked. So yeah, that's an example, I think, right?
That's a good one, Dr. Tachi. I have tomorrow. I had to jump in on this. I'm doing a live with Harry Spade on Selling with Dignity on Friday, and one of the things we're talking about is authenticity. So, but knowing your audience, like people are like, oh, I got to show up and be 100% authentic. Yeah, but on brand, on message, per audience, per knowing what your audience wants. So like me, I could talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers all day, every day. Nobody here except me wants to hear about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like it's so it would be like you talking about Doctor Who. But I'm sure if you went and found Doctor Who group somewhere and did your thing, they would love it. I can be as authentic as I want to be about the Steelers on SteelerNation.com, but not on Clubhouse. Go on, Dr. Tachi.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Because at the end of the day, the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, you're doing this and sharing, not just for yourself, it's for other people. Otherwise, you could just journal and be happy with that. So if it's for other people, you ought to consider what other people think is important or what other people think is valuable. Now, that doesn't mean that part is not valuable. Doesn't mean the Steelers are not valuable. It's just not in that particular entertainment silo. Is it valuable? So like you said, you just go and find where it is of value and you do it that way. Like if I started an entire podcast about Doctor Who, that might work. Where do I have time to do that? I don't. But that's just something to think about probably. Anyway, yes.
All right. So I don't have anything to add there. I think you answered Dom's question perfectly. I don't have a follow-up question on that subject line. I do have a separate follow-up question, just a very quick one, Dr. Tachi, as somebody who is obviously a big fan of Doctor Who, since you had a whole podcast about it. For somebody who's never really watched Doctor Who, right? It's a show that's been on for 40 something years, I think, right? Maybe more than that in total, because there was a big break right between when it started and then it got picked back up again. But anyway, where's a good place for someone to jump in, right? If someone wanted to get into Doctor Who, where should they jump in? Like, where should you start?
That's a good question. So if you are not wanting, most people, I think, it get kind of put off by the older Doctor Who's because of the janky electronics and things. And it's like, you're really telling me the best you can do is a cardboard robot. Is that what you're telling me? So if you are wanting to jump into more of the current doctors, I always mess up the number, but I would say to start with the 10th Doctor, who is David Tennant. I have to check. Somebody can check me on that. But I would start there because that's what started this kind of modern age of Doctor Who. And then it may entice you to go backwards to the originals just for comparison's sake or stories, because the stories were always great. It just is better in the modern age. So I would say start with the 10th Doctor, who is David Tennant. He's either the 10th or the 11th.
Awesome. I like that. And I like him as an actor too. So like that would be an easy one for me to jump in on. So all right. So the 10th Doc.
I know nothing about this Doctor Who. I need to so give me an overview, Doctor Who overview.
30 second.
Yeah, you got 30 seconds to wow us with Doctor Who, Dr. Tachi.
Doctor Who is about Time Lords, basically. So there is a Time Lord. He doesn't really have a name. They call him Doctor Who. And what happens is every so often he will regenerate into a new doctor. And so he travels the universe trying to make things right in a phone booth, a British version of a phone booth, which is called the TARDIS. So it looks like a phone booth on the outside, but it's actually a very intricate spaceship on the inside. And he just travels the earth trying to make things right. It is so phenomenal. You'll love it.
Okay, Dr. Tachi, you're Doctor Who. You cleared it up. Maybe intrigued me, maybe not. I'm not going to tell you. Okay, around the room, rapid fire. You got 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and then we're giving Tom a wrap up.
Not 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 15 seconds.
15 seconds. Steve, 15 seconds. Something that you watch out that you consume that is a bit odd, or maybe it's atypical of who you are. So, Steven, something, you got 15 seconds. What are you watching that is atypical we wouldn't know?
Right now, I just got done watching the second season of The Bear, which is really good freaking show. Yeah, that's what I got, man.
Okay, The Bear, second season. Go on. Good job. Julie Loken, what do you got? Julie. Okay, on to Jason. Jason, something you're watching. What do you got?
Something I watch every couple of days. SB mowing. I am fascinated with lawn care. I don't know why. I just get fixated on it. It's a weird thing that I just watch, and my wife and my kids, they're just kind of like, what the hell are you watching lawn? I mean, dude's doing the same thing. Like, you can do better on our own lawn. I'm like, okay, well, so yeah, that's me watching SB mowing on YouTube. That's
a good one. Okay, John, what do you got?
The one thing, there's many things I watch with my wife, but the one thing I watch almost religiously is NASCAR Cup racing. And because I spent time with my dad when he was dying of cancer, and that's what he liked to do. So I do it more for the emotional nostalgia than for the race itself.
Fair, good one. Tom, you want to answer before the wrap up, and we'll go you, me, and then back to your wrap up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of like a series that I've watched recently, it's been off the air for a couple of years, but Shameless, I watched recently, like kind of blew through all 11 seasons over the course of a few weeks, or a couple of months, actually, I think, but I got through all 11 seasons of it. So that's a crazy show. And worth checking out. And then in terms of like YouTube, like rabbit hole stuff, I tend to get sucked into cooking shows. And there's this guy, and I don't even know that I like watch it on purpose, but he just always shows up in my YouTube algorithm, and I end up watching his stuff. Is this guy he's an American guy from the Midwest who lives in Vietnam. The show is the best ever food review show. That's the title of the show, which is obviously just a keyword salad title. But he's got millions and millions of followers online. He's built a whole business out of this, and he just goes around the world, all over the world, just goes around the world eating stuff and talking about it. That's his job. So it's an interesting thing. It's not very high production value, but I've watched I don't know how many hours of his content.
Good stuff. Okay, I'm you nailed it with Shameless. I'm like 4 or 5 seasons in, but the trash that I am into right now. Me and my wife watch 2 shows together. So the thing I am hooked on, Gypsy Rose. Gypsy Rose on Lifetime. It is the stuff. There is a lot going on there. So on that note,
what is it? What is Gypsy Rose?
What is Gypsy Rose? I am going to go to our television expert, Dr. Tachi. Please tell him who Gypsy Rose is.
Okay, now I have not watched it, but are we talking about the same Gypsy Rose as the original Gypsy Rose Lee, the burlesque dancer?
No, this is Gypsy Rose. That's interesting. This is Gypsy Rose that was in prison because her mom had Munchausen, and she kept her in a room for like 20 years and was like putting feeding tubes in her and not letting her eat and all kinds of stuff like that. Then Gypsy Rose and her boyfriend killed the mother. Now,
good Lord, no, I haven't seen that.
Okay, yeah, right. And she went to prison. She went to prison for this, but her mom was torturing her and stuff. That doesn't make it right. So now Lifetime is following her after she is out of jail. It's kind of like a Love After Lockup, which is also a good show. So, yeah, you guys got to tune in. Yeah, Julie's clapping. Julie, you want to go before we get to the wrap up? You a Gypsy Rose fan?
I can't say fan, but it's intriguing to watch. It's like
Right,
watching a car wreck, right?
That's what I'm saying. Agreed. Yes, I said it was lowbrow. Okay, on that note, this has been Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. Tom, can you wrap it up with Touch of Gypsy Rose?
I definitely can't wrap it up talking about Gypsy Rose. I am familiar with the story now that you talked about. I remember the story, and I've seen some content around her. But I'm definitely not, have not watched the series, the Lifetime series. But it is a wild case and an interesting sort of study in human behavior to some extent, right? Like, and not interesting, like, obviously, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. What she was put through, the emotional and psychological agony that she's been put through in her life is absolutely horrific and unforgivable. But it happened, and it's interesting to be able to look at the sort of the results of that happening. I want to bring it back to what we started talking about, though, and talking about setbacks for the wrap up real quick. And what I want to focus on is, I think, one of the things that in hindsight, it's really easy for us to look back at setbacks and remember that most of the, or a lot of times, the biggest opportunities that we have in our lives come from facing setbacks, come from going through difficult times, that those difficult times often lead to the most prosperous times. The thing that's hard to remember when you're in the moment, though, is that you have to overcome the urge to quit, right? Like you forget about that in hindsight, but in the moment, that urge to quit is really powerful. That voice in the back of your mind saying, you know what, just, it's not working, walk away, is very powerful. And it's something that I've always struggled with, I think, like most other people, right? Is that willingness to throw in the towel. But one of the things that I always remember and I always think about is, again, training for Ironmans. This is a common theme for me, but like the sort of endurance athletics that I do and that I've gotten involved with over the years has really helped me in a myriad of ways in other parts of my life. And one of the ways that it's helped me is it's helped me to really understand that even when I feel like I've got nothing left to give, even when I feel like I am at my limit, I can go further, right? There's always a little bit left in the tank. And sometimes you'll hear different percentages thrown out. Some people will say like 40%, some people will say 20%, some people will say 10%. Whatever it is, I always try to remind myself when I face a setback, and I want everybody listening to this to remember the next time you face a setback, that when you hear that voice in the back of your mind, as you inevitably will, telling you that it's time to throw in the towel, just remember that you have more to give, right? That there is a little bit left in the tank. You always have a reserve to draw on, and you shouldn't be afraid to dip into that reserve to keep moving forward, because moving forward through that obstacle, through that setback, is what is going to lead you to the opportunity on the other side of it. So that's all I've got for today. That's my wrap up, trying to bring it back around to setbacks and facing setbacks. For Dom, I'm Tom. We're not the smartest guys in the room. We appreciate you guys being here with us every week. And supporting the show, being a part of the show. I threw a bunch of links in the chat, so check us out on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you are on the web. Check out those links. I put John's link. I put Dr. Tachi's link. I put Jason's link. I put my link, and I put Dom's link for Bikes and Hikes. Please check those out, and join us next Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. for another iteration of Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. And we wish you the best. We'll see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.